In this age of gender confusion, it's difficult to find advice you can trust to help protect your child from those who would seek to unduly influence them, setting them up to be manipulated and exploited. On Unmasking the Trans Movement, we discuss, educate, and deliver the info parents want and need to help their children, grandchildren, and even themselves.
Welcome to Unmasking the Trans Movement. Now, here's your host, Brad Wilder.
Movement with John Euler. I'm your host, Brad Wilder. Great to be here tonight. Lots to come on tonight's show. John is standing by, as well as a very special guest, an outspoken guest, to say the least. Her name is Karen Davis. We're going to get to John and Karen and a really great hour of some great stuff, all coming up right after this. Citizens and librarians alike have expectations for libraries, and well-run ones can be amazing for everyone. School libraries are often essential to educating children, and as such, special rules apply for the well-being of children in every corner of the world. The World Library Association aims to counter the woke American Library Association's efforts to indoctrinate and sexualize children and hide content from parents and grandparents. The World Library Association provides decades of experience with libraries, and we want to help educate and apply that experience to improve your libraries, whether you're citizens, teachers, librarians, and even trustees. Our common sense model policies comply with community standards, enabling libraries to become truly useful for everyone in the community, and empowering librarians to ensure they work in a safe work environment. The World Library Association. Have questions? We're always open to talk about your libraries, new projects, creative opportunities, and how we can help you. The World Library Association. See us online at worldlibraryassociation.org. Welcome back to Unmasking the Trans Movement here on this Sunday, June the 23rd, as we work our way through the month. We've got a great show planned for you tonight. If you missed last week's broadcast, there was a lot going on there, and there's a lot to come tonight as well. John Euler is standing by, as well as our special guest tonight, Karen Davis, who's an outspoken individual who is, well, I guess just a lot like John and I. I'm not sure about her credentials, John, so maybe you could start there tonight and give us a rundown as to exactly who Karen is as we welcome her to the program for the first time.
Well, I'll tell you who she is. She's almost enemy number one, public enemy number one for all the trans pushers. When I say trans, what I mean is those that have created and crafted this ruse. What trans is, there are no trans people, trans kids, by the way. There's male, female, boys, girls. For the kids, those are kids that have been exploited and manipulated. And Karen said enough. She got out there. She was so outspoken, had such a large following. They went after her. They've gone after me. They've gone after those that have decided enough is enough. So Karen had a great YouTube following. She's been a podcaster, and they went after her, and she was banned. She's back, right? She's back. So we're thrilled. Karen and I have interacted kind of online. We've intended, I would imagine, at some point in time to get together, but she was great. She and I kind of tag team off of different individuals. We'll be talking tonight about Jen Speck, James Canner, Michael Bailey, the deviant sexologist, all those aspects, all things that are a danger to the protection and safeguarding of women and children. Karen Davis, it's a pleasure to have you on the live stream.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm very glad to be here.
I didn't think you were going to say aspect. I thought you were totally going for a different word there. You got done all those people.
Myself. We're shadow banned enough, and just like Karen, at any moment, we all know that the plug may be pulled, so to speak. So, Karen, thank you for those few that may not know who you are. Give us a little bit of background. We have some clips from your YouTube that we're going to play because I was laughing all the way through it. You and I are kindred spirit. So when it comes to the protection of women and children, we all should be able to lock shoulders, standing as a protective wall. And we all quickly find out who is or isn't the real deal, because, sadly, it's going to take people that are willing to take the arrows to say, listen, enough is enough.
Very true. So I am a musician and a music teacher. I've been a freelancer for about 30 years at this point, teaching music and performing. And I play guitar, I sing, I write. I also play classical piano. I teach classical piano. I've worked as a teaching artist for quite some time. I'm very glad I'm not in the classroom now. I am in the classroom, but as a music teacher, and I teach pre-K music and dance now. So I generally don't have to deal with any of the gender stuff. But if I were in the classroom now, I would have a very, very hard time teaching gender curriculum. It would be one of those things that I would try to lose every year. It's like, oh, you gave me the kit. Did you? Really? Are you sure? Oh, it's in my closet? It's not in my closet. Oh, there it's in the closet. Well, what do you know? Oh my goodness. I would be in trouble all the time. So about 4 years ago, I had been spending a lot of time on Reddit. And there was a wonderful Reddit site called GC Debates QT. So Gender Critical Debates Queer Theory. And it was actually a very interesting place to engage the people that I call opposite sex impersonators about their opposite sex impersonation and their motivations and what they were trying to achieve. And it seemed back in the day that there were two groups, that there were people who actually did seem to believe that they were, should be, or could be members of the opposite sex, but were not, and were very distressed about that. And then there were the people that just hated and envied members of the opposite sex. And it seemed to be a fairly even divide between the two groups. But Reddit banned that site, and they also banned, there was just a gender critical site where people who are gender critical could discuss various aspects of being gender critical. So they banned that.
Karen, when you say gender critical, for those that don't know the GC or gender critical word, what is that? Mm-hmm. Because of course it sounds like we're negative, or what is GC? What's gender critical?
Well, what it did mean was that you understood that one cannot change sex. The biological sex is real and immutable. But I'd say like 4 or 5 years ago, that was a somewhat controversial statement among, if you were talking to opposite sex impersonators, but for your run-of-the-mill average everyday person, it was like, of course you can. And then it started to shift, and it shifted very rapidly from saying, okay, well, these people, for the opposite sex impersonators, this is obviously very important to them. It's obviously a central part of their identity. So we can just be nice and go along with it. But of course, you know, a man in a dress is still a man, and a woman who calls herself Aiden is still a woman, of course. But you can say it, just be respectful and all this crap. Okay. So the shift happened when you were no longer allowed to say that. And that's when Reddit banned the gender critical site and banned GC Debates QT. And there was a lot of despair. I was also seeing it on Kelly J. Keene's YouTube page, where women were very upset that we were losing our rights, at least on paper at that point, because the definition of woman was being expanded to include men. So women were being erased legally. We were being banned on social media. People were getting deplatformed. People were getting thrown off Twitter left and right for daring to say that some man who pretends to be a woman is in fact a man. And I thought, okay, this is terrible. There's nowhere except for Kelly J. Keene's YouTube page, and Magdalene Burns was still alive, I believe. So it's like there's two places where women can talk about this. Women were getting thrown off Facebook, and it was just crazy. So I thought, you know, maybe I could create a space where women can talk about these issues without getting shouted down, without being berated, without getting thrown off social media. I'm certainly not going to throw anybody off of my YouTube platform for saying that men can't be women and women can't be men. I won't even throw people off if they disagree with me as long as they're not abusive. So it's like, you know what? Let me try this. Let me give it a shot. Because I had a great deal of admiration for Magdalene Burns and for Kelly J. Key. And I thought, oh my goodness, these women are so courageous. And I'm like, do I have that much courage? And I'm like, well, I'll find out. So we'll just try it and see. And I was very lucky in that one of my early videos kind of blew up. I called it Black Birthing Bodies. It's still on Odyssey because I got banned from YouTube, but my whole catalog is on Odyssey, so it's fine. Where I had heard that term, and I was like, I'm not good with that. Black birthing bodies. My mother was not a hefty bag that I was pulled out of. My mother was a human being. Her mother was a human being. Women are human beings. We are not birthing bodies. And that video blew up, and it brought me to the attention of a bunch of people, and yada, 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 here we are.
And you have since been addressing almost identical things that I address. That's how we came to one another's attention on Twitter or whatever it's called, X now. So in my estimation, we don't have really radical stances. We simply say there are males and females. Female spaces should be preserved as they always have been for women. No guy needs to be in any woman's space. If he has intentions of doing that, he has no good intentions. Kids should be protected. Sexually deviant men should stay in the clubs. They should not be around women and children.
They should come on our show is where they should be. That's what they should be doing, is staying home on a Sunday night and watching the program.
Of course they should. That's right, because then they could sit there and watch Karen and get educated, quite frankly. So,
exactly.
yeah.
We want to say hello to some of our viewers tonight. We want to take a quick minute to welcome Pretty Weird Duck. We want to say hello to I Love X. Ryan Pennington is on board as well. So, hey, thanks a lot for being here, everyone. You've got a question for Karen. By all means, this is your night to get your question in. Karen's here to educate and give you all kinds of information that will, I guess, enlighten everybody who's watching, whether it's your first time or whether you're in the moment and in the movement. We have a chance to educate all of you, and that's what this show is created and all about.
Right, and Pretty Weird Duck, thank you for reaching out. I'll still be in touch. My apologies. Like a lot of us, we get waylaid with pressing matters. But I want to introduce people to Karen's YouTube channel. I was watching a number of her videos and just laughing out loud because not only is she brilliant and she's funny, but she has such good wit and is sharp, so to speak, because of her intelligence. So what I want to do, let me see if I can coordinate
her third person is really well done. I mean, she can be another person over there and commenting on it and then bring herself into it. And the back and forth there is amazing to watch.
Right, so, yeah.
I was an acting major.
There you go.
I spent 4 years and a lot of my parents' money learning how to do that.
Well, that actually is the creative part of you educating, and it's well done, and that's the part that we love on the show. Same thing with another individual we had on recently, which is Alvin Louie. He's excellent with the words and selecting that and really, I guess, creating, a welcome. And then you're doing the same thing. When you talk that way and you express yourself that way, it's welcoming to our viewers. It's welcoming to us as hosts and the expert like John. So, yeah, we appreciate it very much.
Well, and I want people to not only get a sense of Karen's channel and what's available, because we're all about education, we're all about resources here, but also the topics that, Karen, that you cover. You cover current events. And so I've got 4 clips lined up. So we're going to listen to you. And then.
To put my glasses on for this.
Okay, and I get this prepared because you are talking about current day things as I do, and these are serious issues because this is impacting the safety and welfare of, as far as the safeguarding of women and children. And so these come right from your channel. We're going to watch about 4 3-minute clips worth. People can go on to your channel and watch this. As a matter of fact, in the other 3 clips, I have it minimized so they can actually see your channel. But go ahead and give the name of your YouTube channel. How can they find it?
Oh, it's called You're Kidding Right. So it's YOU_REKIDDIN with the apostrophe after the N, comma, RIGHT. Now, actually, since YouTube brought the ban hammer down on me, my current YouTube channel may be very hard to find. Let me just get it up here, and I will let you know how you can actually find it. I think it may just be under my name, Karen Davis.
I'll stop sharing. Can you share your screen right now? If you can.
Probably not.
Okay,
No.
that's fine. I'll bring it back up. I know in one of the future clips, I have this screen minimized, so they'll be able to see.
Okay, and if you find me on Substack, it's under You're Kidding, right? And so that's the official name. On YouTube, because I figured I was sneaking back in, although you can't really sneak onto YouTube, you know.
Oh, that's right. Okay, well, we'll jump right into it, and then after each of these clips, we'll have you say a few things, and then we'll take comments. If anybody has any questions or comments for Karen. So she's talking about the same things we do here, the dangers of these different men. So these are men in women's underwear and drag that are posing to be men. And in this case, shock of all shocks, we have a guy that was soliciting a teenager with pornography, essentially, and posing as somebody who he's not. Karen does a brilliant job commenting and analyzing.
Wonderful. All righty. What have we here? Well, this individual is a vulnerable community member who was found to have engaged in some rather untoward activities with some very young girls online. It says, transgender, posed as teenager online and shared indecent images. Now you notice there's another word up there. Woman. Now I ask you, oh TERF, oh transphobe, oh sane person, in looking at this individual, do you see someone who looks as if they're any type of woman? To me, this individual looks like a man, or in the proper YouTube parlance, a biological man. Now, I must ask you, is there any other type of man? Is there a theoretical man? Is there an existential man? Is there a, for all intents and purposes, man? Or is there just, a man? Let's get into the article, shall we? Here we go. And I want to thank Lucy Jenkinson for supplying us with this. It says, a transitioning offender. You can imagine for yourself the word that I redacted. A transitioning offender who posed as a teenage girl online and shared indecent images told the court that wasn't me. So I guess we are in the realm of the theoretical, since this individual can be some type of woman, acts committed by said individual could in fact have been committed by somebody else. Because, this is where we live now. Emma Davies, who we will just refer to as Davies, 60, pretended to be a 14-year-old girl to talk to girls of a similar age and shared an explicit image of a young girl that she had received, presenting it as Davies' self. That's a whole kind of special, isn't it? The supermarket worker told Workington Magistrates Court that Davies' self took responsibility for what happened, but that the person was not who Davies' self is today. Of course not. Because for these types of offenses, there's certainly no recidivism rate, and the rate of reoffending is non-existent because, obviously the individual is remorseful and has learned Davy Self lesson.
Okay, Karen, well said. Yeah, so each of these clips are about 3 minutes long. I've got 4 of them queued up. Exactly. So what are you, I'm rolling, but just brilliant. Well put. Well put. Any comments on your comments?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I find challenging about doing this, I don't like to talk about the individuals that prey on children. It makes me extremely angry. And it is a tremendous cognitive and emotional task to speak about these issues within the YouTube guidelines. It's like it makes my brain tired. And tired in a way that I don't like my brain to feel. I play classical piano. After like wrestling with some Beethoven, I'm fine. After this, I'm like, oh my God, just, I have to play Candy Crush. But it infuriates me that these men prey on these children, particularly in the UK, where the sentences are so light. It is like, really? So this guy has committed this egregious offense. He has admitted to committing this egregious offense. Everyone agrees that he has committed this egregious offense against a child. And basically, it's just like, so he'll go to jail, maybe, probably not, suspended. So we feel really bad for him. We feel so bad for this man who committed this horrible offense against a child, then who cares about the child? Who cares about women? And so it's just mind-blowing to me.
I don't feel bad. Lock him up. Throw away the key. Enough is enough.
That's what I think. But you may have noticed that the judicial system in the UK is extremely forgiving of these individuals.
Yeah, that's why I need a guy like John over there. John would handle the situation. He did it in the U.S., and we've seen that happen in the past with John's experience. And John, you could take that right over to the U.K. and handle business. And I mean, in jail, they get the mental help that they need.
Right. This is the danger, as Karen is pointing out, that these guys, and look at Jen Specht, and you know what, we'll invite Stella O'Malley. As a matter of fact, interestingly, I have confirmation, I'll show you in a few minutes, that Stella and I was going to interview Stella because I thought she was reasonable. Well, this is before Jen Specht came out, right? And so their open invitation, Jen Specht, to allow these guys, all these guys are porn saturated. Any guy that's going to dress in drag and come out in public saturated with porn, and therefore women's underwear and drag, any guy, and we all assume he's buying his women's underwear, really, not going to laundromats and stealing it. They pose a very real high risk to women and children, and they're being permitted to go right in there. And again,
the deviance goes beyond just dressing up and looking at pornography. It goes into the actual sexual act and experience of it all, doesn't it?
Well, and we see exactly what Karen pointed out.
Right. I mean, one of the things that seems to kind of go over people's heads is that when a man who cross-dresses for sexual gratification, which most of them do, when they come out in public, they are committing a sex act. So we are witness to public sex acts. A lot of people think it's harmless. I'm like, well, that's kind of a new thing because male public cross-dressing was illegal in New York City, I believe, until Bill de Blasio. And I don't remember the year offhand. It was either 2011 or 2015. So up until fairly recently. And it was because people knew that these guys are coming out dressed like that because they are committing sex acts and also because they are soliciting. So it is a form of prostitution for some of these individuals, which then kind of pollutes the area, wherever they are, for everyone. And having men commit public sex acts like cross-dressing makes women more unsafe because you have these men parodying women and parading the idea that women are simply objects for men's sexual gratification. So even if it's just some dude in a dress, the larger message is that this is what women are.
Well,
women are perverted men in dresses.
You got going to airports and stealing women's luggage just as bad. I mean, that's that Sam guy,
Britton.
Right? So,
right, Sam Britton.
The Democrats.
Yeah, the Democrats.
Matter of fact, this is a major part of the Democrat platform, right? We don't, we don't get a lot of politics here, but the reality is this: if your platform is based upon, or a significant part of that platform is based upon pandering to sexually deviant men, this is scary as far as the impact toward women and children. Biden is actively going after the erasure of women's sports, but those deviant guys want access to the locker rooms. That's all. That's it. Like with WeSpa, right. That perp went into WeSpa, and all the deviant guys, including Antifa, showed up when the women were protesting outside to beat the hell out of the women. This is a very dangerous thing for women. Brad, let me ask any other comments. I'm having a hard time because I'm enthralled with this discussion with Karen, so I'm having a hard time multitasking to look at the comments.
Some of our viewers are actually in our chat room are connecting, and they're in the same city, and they're talking about that kind of stuff. So when that starts to happen, that's the community part of what we try to do as well, to bring people together, to get them interjecting and joining in their local movement to help. Get out there and stop it, whether it's with the school boards or whether it's with the drag queen shows that are going on in public libraries, just to name a few of the things that are happening. But if you do have a question tonight for Karen or John, by all means, you're watching along, please, by all means, let us know and chat, and we'll definitely ask the question for you.
There we go. We're going to feature now clip number 2. Karen, where you are pointing out how serious this fight is to protect women and children against those that would permit them into the spaces of women, of actual women and children, against these deviant guys.
I love turpery at events and at protests, but when you have the spontaneous, the impromptu turpery, that makes me very happy. Thank you, Libs of TikTok, for posting this. Now, originally, this was posted to the woman's TikTok. Now, what is this example of turpery, you're asking? Well, a woman was at Angel City Brewery, and was having a meal, had to go to the restroom, and found a man in there, and then spoke to people in charge about it. So she Karened out and asked to speak to the manager. Go. That's awesome. And was told that she
Well, I'm not sure that everybody's actually getting a chance to hear that, John. Can you hear me, John?
I think we lost John.
call it what it is.
There she's back. There we go.
I'm sorry, Brad, we got it?
Yeah, we lost you there for a few seconds. You might want to just roll that back a bit, and we'll pick up again. There you go. Just started from the top again.
Oh, okay. Sorry about the glitch there. We'll continue.
All right, not your problem.
I'm going to check.
No, it did it again, John. We lost audio there for some reason.
I'm sorry, are we losing this, Brad?
Yeah, we're losing audio for some reason.
You know what? Let me do this. Maybe I have to. Oh, okay. Let's do this. Sorry, everyone. Okay, let's do this. This should work now. Sorry about that.
You asking us to do because a grown man was washing his hands next to me, which
we're good now?
Yeah, we're good now.
Okay, there we go.
I have little kids, but we have no rights. Who has the rights?
I've told you exactly where I stand, and I've told you where our company stands.
So we have to leave.
Yes.
The trans doesn't have to leave. That was.
There's the turfing. Make it clear. Make it concise. Call it what it is. I love it.
Using the women's bathroom. The man doesn't have to leave who make me uncomfortable. What about women's rights?
Who gives a shit? Oh, I just said that. Oops. Pardon me, YouTube. But you understand what's going on here. So
Now, this woman is departing from her divinely ordained duty to make vulnerable community members happy and comfortable at all times and in all ways. But Angel City Brewery is picking up the slack by throwing her out. How nice of Angel City Brewery. Prove that he had.
Karen, comment on your comments. Well done.
Right.
Here's that family in a restaurant. A guy in drag walks into the women's restroom. She complains, and guess who gets tossed?
Yeah, that is also infuriating, but it's so par for the course. I've been doing this long enough now, so I still find it infuriating, but I don't find it surprising. One of the goals of the transgender movement, essentially, apart from erasing women legally and driving us out of public life and also demoralizing us so much so that we literally go out of our minds and stop understanding who we are as human beings. The other goal is to make sure that people who abide by standard values are demoralized as well. So if you believe that men are not supposed to be in the women's restroom, and notice it wasn't that, the guy shouldn't be here, send the guy to jail, which would be my stance. Like, the guy's a sexual predator, call the cops. He needs to, spend some time behind bars. That's not where she went. She wanted some recognition of the fact that this is something that should not be going on. Very, very basic. But what transgenderism seeks to do is to undermine not only that value, but undermine your faith in that value, and then to make sure that you cannot adhere to that value, even if you want to. It's very insidious. And what it seeks to do is pull society apart from the foundation. It's a top-down movement because it's financed and supported by our government. But what it seeks to do is to go right at the foundation of people's understanding of themselves and of human beings, our understanding of our sex bodies, and also our understandings of family and what is real, what is the base level reality. And they want to yank that right out from under everybody.
That's right. Brad, let me ask at this point, are there any questions or comments? I know I'm trying to multitask here. And
there are some, actually. Now people are starting to get a little more comfortable on the chat room. So let's just talk a little bit here about one question that's coming in from New Zealand, John. This is a specific one for you. Are you aware that there are people using autism as a defense for rape in New Zealand? This is encouraged by the neurodiversity movement. What's the neurodiversity movement? That's, I think, first time I've heard that on our show.
Yeah, there's always an attempt to come up with new terms. There used to be autism. Neurodiversity, in essence, is speaking to those that have a hard time with their intuition, quite frankly. And those are the ones that are easily manipulated. And so you have now those that are either purposefully or being used by what I call perp apologists that are confused. They've been sucked into a cult. And so now you have people coming along and trying to hijack or co-opt that term, playing under the guise of being quote unquote neurodivergent or autistic. Karen commented on this shooter that walked into the trans shooter that walked into that school in Tennessee, had mental health issues. And so you have a lot of people that are going to...
That was the girl that was dressed as a boy?
That's right. Karen did a wonderful video. If we had time, I was going to play that one as well, because there's very serious issues. And so people that are ill-intended, that have an agenda, they're using vulnerable kids in this movement and then hiding behind that. So it's hard to hold anybody accountable, because the perps and their apologists, the pushers of this stuff, are very adept, and Karen calls them out. They're very adept at, there's nothing wrong with them, but when you start to hold them accountable, they will decry the fact that they're not well. So, Karen, any thoughts about the neurodivergence or the autism end of this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I've gotten to do as a teaching artist is work with autistic kids. I also taught 7th and 8th grade special ed twice. And I was music teacher in an early intervention program for 3 years before COVID. And one of the things that I will say is that early intervention programs, this was pre-K, they're wonderful, absolutely wonderful, and much easier to access than they were when I started teaching in the 90s. That said, one of the disturbing things I saw is that there seemed to be a move away from a certain type of social skills teaching among the kids who are described as lower functioning. When I started, and when I first became a teaching artist, there was a real move to make sure that children had basic social skills, particularly if it looked like they may end up in an institutional setting. Social skills, obviously, that matched their intelligence level and their functioning level. But we seem to be moving away from that and allowing children to act out aggressively. I watched a couple of kids hit their teachers. I mean, draw the hand back and just smack them across the face and then laugh. And okay, I wouldn't allow them to do that to me. I did have to catch a couple of little hands and put the little person back in their chair and say no. I had to do that a couple of times, and it actually worked. But it seemed that, and I asked the teacher about it later, and she said, well, you know, when they hit you, they're trying to communicate. And I'm like, yeah, they're communicating to you that I can hit you. That's what I'm telling you. And she's like, well, you know, they're not verbal, you have to accept. And I'm like, I don't have to accept getting beaten up by a 4-year-old. I just don't. And there are ways that you can manage that behavior. Because if this child ends up in an institutional setting, that kid's going to get hurt.
There we go.
Or that kid will end up in a restrictive environment, possibly in chemical restraints, which you don't want. You need to teach these children how to manage those impulses, not just for your own sake, because I can imagine the self-esteem beating that the teacher was taking, but also for the sake of that child and for his parents at home. Kid's not always going to be 4. He's going to be 25 one day, and he's going to draw that hand back, and he's going to break somebody's jaw or give someone a concussion. So when I hear about this use of autism as a defense against rape, it doesn't surprise me, because I saw that starting before COVID, where if the child has some kind of developmental delay or developmental disability or neurological impairment, that we're supposed to excuse, we as women in particular are supposed to excuse any type of behavior that child wants to dish out. So it made me very angry. And if I had been brought back to that program, and I think that's one of the reasons they didn't bring me back after COVID, because I was starting to make some noise, I would have had to talk to the director about that. Because I'm like, look, you're doing these kids a disservice by allowing anyone to tell them either explicitly or implicitly that it's okay for you to try to knock your teacher's head off just because. Like, no. That kid could end up getting shot by the cops because it's wilding out at home and no one can control them. That kid could end up, on a locked ward that we don't have very much anymore. That kid could end up in the subway. Like, what are we here for? We're here to help these little people avoid, the negative consequences that can arise from having these disabilities. And you're not going to do that by letting them smack the teacher around.
Okay, so this agenda isn't just about the trans movement. This is a part of a bigger plan in the world that's going on right now. And let me ask you, you're probably old enough to remember a gentleman and a broadcaster named Paul Harvey. Remember him? His end line was, "Good day." He wrote this back in 1965, and it's called "If I Were the Devil." And one particular paragraph comes to mind after what you guys just talked about. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline their emotions. Just let those run wild until before you knew it, you'd have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door and porn in every school library.
Yep.
Now, there it is. Now, this is, again, like I said, part of a bigger agenda, bigger platform, but we try not to get too political here. We've talked about Orange Man tonight. We've talked about the old sleepy man tonight. Now we can talk a little bit about, what's going on in the world from the devil's side of things, because this is an evil plan that goes deeper than just a trans movement. But this is that one distraction where they are starting to really, I guess, leave our kids alone really makes sense in this situation, doesn't it?
Well, what we've got here, Karen, we've got a graphic. I saw these different graphics, and I overlaid it on the voting districts, or which districts in the U.S. are dark blue or under the quote-unquote Democrat Party influence. Interesting. So here are the major locations of the largest transgender dispensaries. Okay, those hospital systems. You see a lot in California, of course, Kaiser Permanente, which is now being sued by Chloe Cole. But interesting, look at this little cluster down here in Texas. You can see kind of the areas down here. We've got some in Middle Texas, interesting little blue. Look at in Florida. And you go up the Eastern Seaboard, very similar. You see them in the blue areas, so you wonder, what is that about? Well, let me go on to the next slide. So could be happenstance, but it's very interesting in the Democrat-controlled areas, those that favor the pushing of hormones and calling men women and women blurring all that, and also removing the safeguards for women in prison, meaning putting these deviant guys in there, and removing women's sports, allowing deviant guys to access the locker rooms. Here's another one, by the way. Sex trafficking. Very interesting. Now, again, does that not happen in a conservative district? Of course it does, but at the same time, the numbers speak. So very interesting overlay.
Same places, right? Same overlay in blue.
Okay, so here's sex trafficking. If you get a kid, you cross their boundaries long enough, you confuse their intuition, you get them into the trans movement, they're easily exploited. Here is, let's do another one. Okay, here were the locations of the riots. Right, what year? Sorry about that. I got mine in 2020. Very interesting. So again, is this correlation equals causation? No, but I tell you what, very interesting. Let me see if I have. Nope, that's the one for right now. But Karen, your thoughts on that, along with this is what you want people to understand. This guy is serious. This may have been taken from a Kelly J. Keene rally, but these folks, they're not fooling around. And also, why don't you, Karen, describe what is TERF? Because can you imagine anybody walking around with a shirt saying kill? He's saying kill a group of people.
Mm-hmm. Well, TERF stands for Trans Exclusive Radical Feminist. And that used to be a pejorative term. A lot of people were very upset about being called TERFs. So I wrote a wonderful TERF anthem called I'm a TERF. And because I figured we might as well embrace it. It's not going anywhere.
You've got TERF mail actually on the chat room. Says, question for Karen, would she be re-recording or recording her amazing protest songs and putting them up on her channel again? They were so great, and no one makes TERF anthems like you do.
Keep reminding me. I will. So it was an insult, and now I think it's a compliment, because in order to be a TERF, you generally have to withstand a lot of abuse from the trans rights activists, and also from other women who are supposed to be on your side, who expect or want you, as a TERF, to understand that certain men who wear dresses should be extended privileges, while other men who wear dresses should not be extended those privileges. There are certain women who call themselves men who you're supposed to understand, but then there are certain women who call themselves men who you're not supposed to understand. So if you are what they started calling a hardliner, if you're a hardline TERF, you've gotten it from both sides, from the trans rights activists and also from the gender criticals. And the gender critical movement is kind of splintered, where you have now gender critical people who think that certain male cross-dressers like David Hayton and Phil Illey, just to mention two, or Blair White, are good ones, and the other men in dresses are not good ones. And the bar between good ones and the not good ones is that the good ones admit they're men and the bad ones don't.
It's just so people don't understand who Phil Illey is, and you're making such a good point, right? Just because he said, I'm not a woman. Yeah, but his book is all about male sexual deviance. Any guy that's willing to do this is highly saturated in porn. And the question, this was taken from a Gen Spect conference, and they allowed this guy to be in here when this place is saturated with sexual abuse victims.
Yeah, that kicked off a whole
and we're both familiar with this gal who goes after anyone who dares say that men should not be in space, men in women's underwear and drag. And Sierra Ware is known for the most ruthless of things. So we both, Karen, you and I have been on the receiving end of that. Unfortunately, yes. She is not credible, to say the least.
Yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. Because the whole point was that a man in a dress is a man in a dress. And for the purposes of protecting women and children, that man's motivation for wearing that dress does not matter. It really doesn't. It's important to him, his therapist, whoever he hangs out with, and possibly his lawyer. For women, protection of women, liberation of women, protection of children, it doesn't matter. He's a dude in a dress. And whether or not he has gender dysphoria, which I'm sure it was very rare, I'm sure it's still very rare, or if he's a transvestic fetishist or what, it doesn't matter. He's a man in a dress. He doesn't need to be in women's spaces. He can discuss his motivations with whomever, but for the purposes of this movement, they are completely beside the point. So that seems very straightforward to me. There are other people who want to split hairs and come up with a lot of
nuanced. There's nothing nuanced about a deviant guy in a dress. Nothing nuanced or subtle about it.
No. And you know what? If you're doing a dissertation about the psychology of cross-dressing or whatever it is, fine, go right ahead. But again, if we're talking about keeping men out of women's spaces, then we're talking about all the men, all of them. It does not matter. It doesn't matter if he's your friend. It doesn't matter if he's your friend's friend. It doesn't matter if he's your husband. It doesn't matter if he's your brother. It doesn't matter if he's your next door neighbor. It doesn't matter if he's your son. Men in a dress, no men in women's spaces. End of.
There you go. And there's a whole, there's a number of individuals that are academics that have been used and are more than happy to lend their perspective. And these happen to be, so Karen, let's talk just for a moment about a couple of these because they're associated in one way or another with Gen Spect, Stella O'Malley, right?
Yes.
And this has created a great deal of confusion when it shouldn't. You and I together individually have called these guys out. Just to name two, and if they want to come on any of our programs and debate, more than happy to do that. So the first is James Canner. His position is that the P, which stands for pedophile or pedophilia, should be added on to the growing alphabet list of the LGBTQ+.
Yeah, no, that shouldn't be there at all. I'm going to be the first one to say that on the show.
There's Stella, just so people can see that Stella O'Malley had called me on November 19th on Skype because we were trying to set up an interview, she and I together. She has never responded to me publicly, so she acts like she doesn't know me. I came across that the other day. Let me scroll down. Here's another comment by, James Canner, one about bestiality as well, so it's in here somewhere. Karen, any thoughts about James Canner? Then we're going to feature Michael Bailey just for a moment.
Yeah, just on my first iteration of the YouTube channel, Cantor actually popped into a live stream. And he was talking about he was talking about the destigmatization of the desire to rape children. And I asked him a very direct question. I said, what would that look like? Are we talking about ads on TV or ads on social media, like before you put your hand on the child, call me? Are we talking about billboards along the highway, like you see the billboards for, medications you can take to stop drinking, or medication you can take for, to stop doing drugs or whatever? It's like, are we talking about that? Are we talking about the destigmatization being so complete that now someone can go to jail for child molestation and get a job in a preschool? What are we talking about? I wanted some specifics, at least one specific. He would not give me any. I was also thinking it could be something like, okay, if someone goes to jail for a sexual offense committed against a child, it's mandatory that they have to have X number of years of therapy in X type of program. None of that. Now, I found a screenshot of his, or a screenshot from a Daily Mail article.
I have another screenshot of his.
Oh, okay.
So there's another one to let people know what kind of individual this is. So Z is zoophilia. It's a rebranding of bestiality. You notice how he's parsing. This is really dangerous and deviant. So zoophilia is a sexual attraction pattern. Who's going to put it like that? A sexual attraction pattern of what? Of men that are wanting to rape animals.
Is James Cantor a pedophile? Is he zoophilia or whatever? What is he? He must be part of this whole movement if he's got to be participating in this crap.
Well, we won't go so far as to say that, but I'll tell you what. We have, let me see if we're going to talk about Michael Bailey, but watch your eyes. I've just loaded a few things. Everybody watch your eyes. Okay, this was from his Facebook account. These are just a couple of things, by the way. We're not going to camp on Cantor too much here, but very much, look at it. He posted these stories. So last night's election, so he's really excited. We've got more activists in government. He posted a thing about therapy and kink. This is extremely dangerous, by the way. If you take a sexual abuse survivor and suggest she involve herself in kink, that means you're allowing some guy to put his hand around her throat and do other things. They blocked out the picture when Cantor didn't, but anyways. So he's got, again, minor attracted adults, MAPS. He tries to reframe pedophilia. And then we'll go into, he pushes Pornhub. Oh, there's the bestiality one right there. So during the lockdown, he was pushing Pornhub. I think we had, there we go, and furries. Okay, so he pushes furries. He sees nothing wrong with furries, and that's it for James Cantor. But he has been featured on Jen Speck's podcast, interviewed by Stella O'Malley.
Yes, he has. And he's also on the Virtuous Pedophile website as a supporter. Cantor advocates for sex offenders to get sex dolls so they don't actually go out and get a real child. And my thought is, really, bro, look, that's practice for them. And do you really think one of these individuals is going to content himself with a silicone replica?
It's
absurd. It is absurd on its face. And he also is quoted by the Daily Mail of saying, and this is part of the destigmatization of the desire to rape children, it says, the evidence suggests it's inborn, it's neurological. Pedophilia is the attraction to children, regardless of whether the person ever harms. So what he's saying is that the desire to rape children is a neurological impairment. And aren't we supposed to care about the neurologically impaired? As we were talking about earlier, with people using neurological impairment as an excuse for rape, here it is.
There it is. And again, all he can show is the white matter, which is neural activity, is larger in certain areas. Well, yeah, if you're focused on something a lot, that area is going to grow. Let's also now shift, just in the interest of time, Karen. Sorry, I'm all over the place, but I love getting your thoughts on this. Stella O'Malley, head of GenSpec, recently published with another sexologist that you and I have serious concerns about, named Michael Bailey. We're going to set this up for the audience. Who is Michael? If you think I would have this guy, that I would publish with this guy, it's unbelievable. Here is a little story about Michael J. Bailey.
For explicit details about others.
Some unusual extracurricular activity at Northwest University causing outrage. With the story, we have Kevin Helliker in the Chicago Bureau. Kevin, tell us what's been going on.
Well, Simon, ever since word leaked out that at a Northwestern University professor held a demonstration after class that included sex between a man, a woman, and a sex toy, outrage has been growing up in Evanston, where the campus is. It's been growing across the country among Northwestern alums. And then coming to the defense of the professor are his colleagues in the world of the study of human sexuality.
Okay, and the university flip-flopped a bit. Initially, they supported him, saying the university supports the efforts of faculty to further the advancement of knowledge, and they said some more, and then they flip-flopped, and they're not so happy now. What happened to make that change?
I think what happened, very likely, what I know happened, is that the university heard from a large number of unhappy supporters and alums. And and where exactly the president of the university was during the first few days that this scandal or story broke isn't clear. But he came out yesterday with a statement saying he's very unhappy about it, and he has launched an investigation. And in his words, he sees it as an opportunity to clarify what constitutes appropriate pedagogy.
Lisa Chavarria is live near the Northwestern University.
There we go. So that's Michael Bailey. Now we're going to see a couple of his little clips. And Karen, you actually had shared a couple of them. This was his response about what about an infant if they were if they were raped. And Michael Bailey says, well, I think if he didn't physically hurt them and if they didn't remember traumatically, his actions should be penalized less than had he physically hurt them and they did remember.
Yeah, so apparently, if you rape a baby, say, that's less of a big deal than raping a 4-year-old, because a 4-year-old might remember it and be upset, whereas the baby, well, this man is insane. It is utterly demonic.
Yeah, I got a short rope for him.
Seriously. And Stella O'Malley considers him to be one of the most brilliant minds in the study of transgenderism. The man is a complete and utter degenerate, and you can tell by the statement that he made. And Stella O'Malley doesn't that. He's been featured on their podcast, Gender a Wider Lens. And now, one of the things that Michael Bailey also does is he promotes people in the field of transgenderism. And one of the people that he's promoted is a man named Bill Illey, the guy that we saw earlier in the blue dress. And Illey wrote this, it's a damn near unreadable book that's an apologia for fetishism. But Michael Bailey hosted a symposium, I believe it was August 2023, at which Illey was featured. Now, Illey was also a big splash at GenSpec last conference. It happened last year. Here's what Michael Bailey said about Bill Illey. Bill Illey is smart, wise, controversial. Importantly, he is autogynephilic and not in denial. AGP is a neglected part of this important conversation. Neglected on the left by denying its existence and importance. Neglected on the right by demonizing and attributing it to porn. Illey is Bailey's protege. Bailey wants to promote the acceptance of autogynephilia and of autogynephiles, and of, again, the hatred and degradation of women and children. That's what this man is all about.
Matter of fact, here's another quote. Here's Bailey. I know men who are pedophiles. Really? Bailey, how do you know men that are pedophiles? I'm curious. Are you in sex offender treatment? Yeah, I know men who are pedophiles and who have never touched a child sexually. How do you know that? James Kenner, how do you know that? The best thing they could say is, well, they would know. Really? I have 15 years dealing with sex offenders. Really? And you can know. How would you know that? Well, you're going to take their word. Take the word of who? The world's greatest liars. It goes on. Imagine what their lies have been like with people wanting them dead. Who wants sex offenders dead? Okay, yeah. Why? Because they've harmed, but at the same time, in my sex offender treatment groups, I never have guys saying they're fearful to walk down the street. Okay? Despite the fact that they've never done anything wrong. Again, look at how they are changing the narrative and pushing sympathies to sexually deviant guys. So the fact that Stella O'Malley, head of GenSpect, has a low bar approach to safeguarding women and children, does an article, co-authors with Michael Bailey, and features James Canner, and then goes after me with the most snide of comments. We have serious concerns about GenSpect, and there's just not enough time to comment on everything. Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick. I was thinking, if GenSpect's goal, as stated, now I think they've changed their mission statement since I started going after them, but if GenSpect's goal is to guard the mental health of individuals who are gender dysphoric, or who are the latest bit of lingo is gender confused, they know that one of the things that can provoke gender confusion and gender dysphoria is sexual abuse, right? So how can you credibly say that you are acting in the best interests of people whose identity may have been so profoundly disturbed by sexual abuse by partnering with people who support pedophiles? It just blows my mind. And this makes some people very angry. They say, well, Stella's doing great work. And if I ask them, what is the great work that Stella O'Malley is doing? No one can tell me what it is. Or they say that she refers people to therapists. And I'm like, Google can do that. You don't need Stella O'Malley to do that. But they will not answer the question of how are you supposed to safeguard the mental health of people who may have been sexually abused by partnering with pedophiles? It is absurd. And I do not understand why other people do not see that absurdity. That is also absurd to me. So it's absurdity piled on top of absurdity on top of a pile of perversity. It is unbelievable to me.
That's right. And she collects around herself individuals or affiliations with people. One we were going to have on here until he unmasked himself as a very slanderous, slimy individual, which I will be responding to in a video, Matt Osborne. So he's a fraud. Yes. He's a little, as a matter of fact, he has reviewed books that are highly deviant. He said they're fine. We will actually, in a video I put together, we'll show some of the books that Matt Osborne has felt is fine, but he's just a twisted little individual. So yes, too bad, Matt. No, you don't get any airtime. You revealed what you're about. Karen, what else, before we start to wrap things up, what are some of the things that you want people to understand?
I think I want people to, a couple things. I want people, particularly women, to not be afraid to think about these issues clearly. I want them to not be afraid to understand exactly how malign and malignant transgenderism is. I want them to not be afraid to say so. I want them to not be afraid to resist in whichever way. And that could be in what they say. It could be in habits of mind, whatever. I want people to have their eyes open about how dangerous this crap is, but not to fear it, so that we can push back against it in whatever way makes sense for whomever. Some women go to Kelly J. Keene's events, and they, they're out in the street, and I think they're very brave, because pretty much guaranteed, if you are in a major city, a blue city in the United States, that you are going to have to deal with angry TRAs up in your face, screaming at you, possibly trying to be violent with you. Women have been assaulted. They've had their bones broken, all kinds of stuff. So hats off to those women. I admire them greatly. Other women go to sporting events in which men are featured in place of women. And, they say no men in women's sports. They've got the signs and all of this. I admire them as well. Other women are going to school board meetings. Whatever it is you can do, please don't be afraid to do it. The other thing that I would love to see, and I don't know how we're going to do this, because I believe that our politics has been infested with this nonsense. And I think it's just a matter of time before the transgenderists get a hold of the Republicans. I think the Republicans probably cost more, so they're harder to buy. But I think that if they are determined, they will buy them too, like they bought the Democrats. We need a sea change. And I never thought I would say these words. I really didn't. But I think we go back to, if it's possible, our family values. I really do. I went to Catholic school, and there was no messing around with sister. You did what you said, and the story. And my creativity was not crushed. Neither was my spirit. I play 2 instruments. I'm a working musician. Sister Beatrice giving me the ice blue glare of death when I was talking too much really did not damage my soul. Even though I would have said it did when I was 10 years old, at this point, it's like, nah, I just needed to shut up. So did everybody else. It was okay. And it was very clear that what my parents said is what I had to do. And it has actually served me in my entire life. One of the reasons I never got caught up in the crazy drug scene in music is because I knew that my parents did not want me to drink and do drugs, so I didn't, because I wanted my parents to be proud of me. So it's like, I don't know how we would get back there or move forward into that space, but it is something that needs to happen. Because if you have a fundamental understanding of who mom and dad are, and also a fundamental understanding that there are certain pillars of reality that aren't going anywhere, transgenderism falls apart.
Right. And Karen, I want to show people where they can find you. There is your YouTube channel.
Yay, there's me. Yes.
Karen Davis 3000 video.
Yes,
so
that's me.
You've got a lot of great videos. I was prepared to review 2 more, but you've got a lot of great videos on there.
Thank you.
Very brilliant, very pertinent. And you also have a Substack. Let me bring that up.
Yes.
And access that. So please go and show Karen some support, and you'll also get just very good intellectual content, good intellectual firepower to stand up against those that are looking to do away with women's rights. This is an existential threat, Karen, against women and accessing vulnerable kids.
It definitely is.
Yeah. Well, Karen, thank you for being a tremendous guest. It's a gift to us to have you on, and your intellect, your wit is just second to none. So I enjoy that.
Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that.
It's never a shy moment, is there?
As always.
It's great. Thank you both for being here tonight. We've got to remind our viewers and our listeners that they can like, share, subscribe, follow, join us online. We have our own website at Unmasking the Trans Movement. We're found on Rumble and YouTube. Next week's show, there's a lot coming up again. What's up next week, John?
Well, I don't have the calendar. I should know these things. My apologies. Oh, I think it's Aaron. As a matter of fact, Aaron Cruz. My apologies, Aaron.
Aaron Cruz, but Aaron used to be known as Aaron Holmes, right?
Aaron Holmes, that's right. Yeah. She's an investigative reporter. Aaron, my apologies. But talk about doing a deep dive into prostasia and unmasking the role that James Canner has played in that as well. So Aaron now is doing a deep dive into human trafficking, the trafficking of kids. She is a hero, and she's going to be on with us to talk about what's going on in certain regions to try to protect kids. So it'll be a very informative and power-packed hour next week.
Excellent.
Well, once again, thank you very much to both of you for being here. Thank you to all of our viewers tonight. This is Unmasking the Trans Movement. Remember, it's not our kids' fight. It's actually our fight. So now's the time to stand up. Now's the time to get involved. And now's the time to take action. Till next week, I'm Brad Wilder on behalf of John Euler and Karen Davis. Thanks a lot for being here, everybody. We'll see you again next time. Good night.